And it'll help.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday night, so welcome to Arkansas Motorsports Magazine's Tuesday Night Tune-Up. And we're just outside of Beebe, Arkansas. And tonight, I'm Bill Gilkey with our co-host, one of the few people in Arkansas that make Dave Van Horn smile, Heath Tate down on the other end. And we're here tonight, and we have Raymond Dye with us. And then we have, I'm just kidding, Eric Perry. We're glad to have Eric with us tonight. And we've got Jeremy Murphy. And then we also have the living legend, IMCA racer himself, David Baser. And I mean that with all sincerity. He is, when it comes to IMCA modified racing, he's been there and done that. And it's an honor to have these guys here with us tonight. And thanks for Eric for inviting us out.
Absolutely.
And we want to thank our sponsors tonight for helping us get over here tonight. Chambers Bank with 28 locations throughout Arkansas. Shaw Race Cars up in Batesville, builders of some of the world's finest IMCA modified race cars. We want to thank Skyway Buick GMC in Joplin, Missouri. Realize they may be in Joplin, Missouri, but buying a vehicle from Skyway over the internet has never been easier. Also, we want to thank True Grit Auction Company over in Dardanelle, Arkansas, Arkansas's #1 leading online auctioneer. Check their Facebook pages out because they've got some auctions going on right now and got some coming up that are just out of this world. So check those out. And we also want to thank Kevin Rogers over at KR Performance Fuels, and he does a lot for Arkansas Motorsports Magazine, and we appreciate you, Kevin. And we'll get into tonight's show, and we'll pass it over to Heath Tate for what I've been liking to call this week's Racing Weather Report.
It seems like that's what it is, rain. Next week we can get in a lot of track racing, but I noticed this week nearly everybody's rained out. Crowley ran. Eric went up there at Crowley and put his Shaw modified in first place there.
Congratulations.
Fun place to go.
But Batesville rained out. I-30. They were having the comp cams race at I-30, I guess. Didn't get to have none of that.
It's just been a tough weather format for racing.
Motors and racetracks around. You know, this time of year getting rained out every week is getting tough. Yeah. So.
What we got coming up this week?
Looks like there's no rain. Looks like everybody's going to get to race this week.
Well, we're gonna
hope
that.
if it'll quit raining today,
Just
tomorrow,
yeah.
the next couple of days, we can get dried out enough to where everybody can race.
Yeah.
There's no rain this weekend. It looks like. So,
Right.
hey, maybe we'll get to run, and you won't have to drive all the way to Crowley's Ridge this weekend. Go up the road here to I-30 and run.
Yeah, we've been running for points at Little Rock, and Macrucci is probably the smart guy and tells me to stay home on weeks like that, but I got a real problem. When you got a race-ready race car, it's been doing well. It's hard to sit home within the shop. Plus, Crawley's is one of our favorite places to run, so we like to get up there and get an opportunity and run at Trent Francis track.
Well, also Heath, I know there's going to be quite a few reporters that are going to try to hold you to your forecast for this weekend.
we're gonna hold it.
Also want to give a shout out to our drag racing counterparts down at Serval Drag Ray. Wayne and Patty Style, they've got a big
race this weekend.
Small tire shootout this
Yeah.
weekend. Those are always great shows. And Jackie Lewis down at Prescott Dragway will have an excellent show going on as well this weekend. So.
Maybe everybody will get to run and get some racing in here. We'll be able to talk a little bit about some racing going on other than just one or two tracks in the state that you actually get to run. It seems like every week it's just one or two tracks to get to. Wherever the rain is.
Well, it's all on your shoulders.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've got big ones.
Well, all right. So, like I said, we're here with this great lineup of entertainment tonight. And like I said, I want to thank Eric for inviting us over tonight. And Heath, I'll let you kick the main part of the show off tonight.
Fellas, how we normally do this, we'll ask y'all how you got started racing. Basically, just talk about racing is all we're going to do here tonight. And I guess we'll start with David down there on the end.
Somebody
You know,
said he'd been in a few races.
He's
Yeah.
been in a few.
I've been around a while.
Oh, you got to run at the old Beebe track right here. Back in the
I
day.
won a couple championships out of Beebe Speedway, sure did. Got started, I started working at Russell Chevrolet, and the service manager, or no, it was shop foreman, raced, and I seen his car and I asked him, I said, where are you racing this at? He said, I-30 Speedway. And he said, man, you need to come out there. And I said, well, I've always wanted to race. So it's funny, I come out there, and I promise you, I went and got a beer. My girlfriend was like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to watch them race at I-30. She goes, I want to go. And I looked there, I said, really? She goes, yeah. My uncle used to race out there. I was like, come on, let's go. I literally sit down with my beer, and they called them bomber class. And believe me, when they said bomber class, they looked like bombers.
And what year was this, probably?
Like I said, it's 30 years ago.
So back in the 80s?
Yeah.
The 80s, 90s?
Yeah. And so anyway, I sit down, and all they were doing was hot lapping. But they come out and come down the straightaway through the green flag, and I swear to you, it was like somebody was doing this back of my hair. I was like, I went back to work that Monday. I said, when you get ready to sell that car, I want to buy it. So, I mean, and he wound up selling it, and I ended up, believe it or not, my high school car was a Firebird. And I tried to put it together, and it would go real fast down the straightaways, but it just wouldn't make the corners very good. So I ended up then turned around and bought his modified the next year, and like we was talking earlier, I never set up a car or anything like that. So finally, when I got some help from my buddy Duke,
what year was this?
Well, it was the next year, so just say if it was 87, then
Okay.
88 or whatever. And then, but anyway, I finally got my buddy Dude to help me set up the car, and went out and won the heat and the feature that night. And like a darn fool, got out there and did the moonwalk out there on the straightaway and kissed the ground. I was so happy. They were so happy. I was like, you just acted a fool. I said, I was that happy. I was like, I said, but, I did. And
There's a lot of difference in the modified then and the modified now.
Exactly, because he had actually built that car off of the soda frame. Actually, Jeremy and them ended up with it, and it's probably still in your woods.
I think so.
And but it was a tough car. It was a tough car. Won a lot of races with it. Like I said, won the first championship with it. And like I said, it's just I think I've won 7 track championships, 1 state championship. So don't know how many races. Got a trophy room full of trophies, and right now
The track championships, where were they at?
Of course, I-30, Beebe, and Sheridan.
Okay.
Where they all were. Sheridan doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Beebe supposedly is going to come back, maybe not. Who knows? So, but anyway, been racing out at I-30 for all, since all these other tracks. I raced at Batesville quite a few times, won quite a few races up there. But when I started working down at Pine Bluff and Whitehall, it just kind of hard to get off on Fridays and make it there.
Make that trip.
There's a lot of responsibility being the service manager down there. It's just, they need me there, so it's kind of hard. So just been kind of scaling back, just race on Saturday nights. On occasion we'll go to Batesville or maybe a big race, but for the most part.
Maybe the race for hope.
Went up there for that. That was, a nice deal up there. Kind of felt like I didn't deserve to be there because I didn't have, a car that was, in my opinion, capable of racing with them. Now, the car I got now, Tyler Stevens drove, got it from Todd Sherrill, and it's the nicest piece that I've ever had. But, even at that, there's a lot of stiff competition that goes up there.
There is
It
that.
makes you very humble, even though I've won a bunch of races up there and go up there to race like that, and it's like, I had
Well,
fun.
you're gonna get the best of the best.
Oh yeah.
And especially this year.
After not being able to do
All
it
that
last year.
all that money being thrown around up there.
Yeah. But I don't know if we're gonna go back this year or not. It'd be nice to. Like I said, it's just one of those deals you have to just kind of wait around and see.
Now, we were talking earlier about it. And, you went to the Boone Nationals one time, and you ended up on the cover of Stock Car Racing magazine.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind that?
Well, you know, and like I said, when you go to Boone, I mean, there's cars everywhere. Wonderful facility. It's amazing how they prepare the track and stuff. Of course, we had a little trouble, you know, when you go somewhere you hadn't been before, and was trying to figure the car out, and finally figured out what was going on. Put another spring in the right front. Next thing I know, I'm coming out of the, you know, turn 4, flat on the floor, can see the leader. Next thing I know, 2 cars get wedged together, hit me in the right rear, and it's kind of went bam, bam, and then that second one that turned me sideways, dug in, and away I went, and flipped me down the straightaway, and you know, of course, had to put it together enough to get it in the trailer. We kept putting stuff on it,
And the car, I want to explain the car. It just pretty much came completely apart.
Oh yeah, rear end come out of it, you name it, you know. But we managed to put it back together. I kept saying, you know, I was like, yeah, I think, well, we quit about 2:30 in the morning.
2:33, yeah.
And we say, we come back later. And another funny deal about that, the guy I played golf with that morning was called Hollywood. Had a big old Indian bodyguard. And anyway, he come down there and checked on me. That's the reason why the car was so high up in there. I was like, I don't know, because the jack was sinking in the ground. He comes over, picks it up, and says, "I'll put the jack stands up." We was like, oh my gosh. But that's how, like I said, you know, how friendly everybody is up there and helping me come down there and check on me. But it was funny. He comes walking up, you know, the next day, kind of shakes his head, and he says, "Dadgum race car driver." So I was like, "What?" He goes, "What'd y'all do? Work all night?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, we're just gonna probably just make a couple laps, you know, stuff." But we did. We raced it the next day, and you know, and Dad calls me a couple months later, and he goes, "You're not gonna believe this." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "You made the cover of a nationally publicized magazine." And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, and it wasn't in your best form. You just kind of flipped them down straight away." I was like, "Well, at least I guess I made it. I can always have that to tell my kids and grandkids, you know, I made the cover of the magazine."
I mean, you know, like I said, it probably wasn't one of your best moments, but at the same time, I think that, and I still have the magazine and a copy of the article, that, you know, it showed a lot of pride and determination that you have, you know, towards your racing, and I thought the article really represented you well, especially being an Arkansan and a fellow racer. So, there is some pride to go with
Oh
this.
yeah, oh yeah. You know, like I said, my dad, you know, and he's my biggest sponsor and always has been pretty much. You know, I've had quite a bit of sponsors, but you know, when it comes to my dad, he's all about that race car. You know, he's 80 years old. He still builds the body. You know, bless his heart. I think he's gonna have to retire whether he wants to or not. But he's probably my best sponsor. You know, and I've got Sherwood's Automotive. You know, that helps me out. You know, he's got a nice repair shop there in Gravel Ridge. If anybody ever needs anything, you know, that's around that area, he'd be more than happy to, you know, do anything for you. And you know, it's just, you know, it's just part of it.
Yes, sir.
You know, and you know, it's like I said, you gotta have pride in it. If I wasn't any good at it, I wouldn't do it. You know, like I told my wife, I said, if I quit being competitive, I'll quit. And you know, unfortunately, I think my age is catching up to me now. So, but I'm still competitive, still love it. Talked about maybe going down to the IMCA stock cars or something like that. Just something that's not so technical anymore. These cars have got so darn technical now. You got to keep on top of it. I got a full-time job, work out of town, so I spend 12 hours a day, dealing with it. So, a lot of research and stuff like that, it's kind of got by me. But, we do what we can. My crew chief Ozzy's was with me for a long time. And Blase's already lost his wife, and he's come back. He showed up at the racetrack this year, and he was like, "You're back," So got to take the plugs to him. He's been with me, and he loves racing too. So, it takes a lot when somebody comes back to you like that. Kind of gets a little bit more spark in you too. So try to do it for him too. Just like Dad. And just try to do everything we can to be competitive.
Yes.
Move on to Jeremy now.
All right. Well, I'm crew chiefing for Eric this year.
We're sorry.
It can be a challenge sometimes, but we're getting there. I've been involved in racing. Well, my dad raced as I was growing up, and my parents. One of the things that they always told us is we were growing up and getting ready to branch out on our own with our families, was that being involved in dirt track racing, they always knew where their kids were on Friday night, or Saturday night. We were there with the family as a family, watching Dad or helping him Dad. Then my sister went and married a racer as well. And so her and her kid is always at the racetrack as well. So we're carrying on the tradition. I raced for several years. And then after having a child of my own, I backed out of it and started promoting and helping out David and Eric on their racing. Been blessed, been able to met David back in '95 at Russell Honda at that time, and I was running a street stock. Didn't have, I was in the same boat as him. Didn't have a whole lot of idea of what to do with the setup, and he helped get us, dialed in there. And then I loved hearing his modified fire up every morning. He'd pull it out of the shop and pull it outside, and I just love the sound of that. And I know street stocks are a lot different now.
I hate that.
but I just, he had the whole tractor headers coming out and everything, and it was just that sound. So, and my street stock didn't sound that good. So the next year, my dad bought us a modified and raced those, like I said, for several years. And then finally in 2005, I think it was, I sold out and just started, like I said, with promoting and then helping other racers. So really loved it. Been blessed to work with David and Pete Butler, and then I mentioned my brother-in-law Jason Heffley, and then now Eric. So been around a lot of talent, learned a lot of stuff. Got out of it for a few years here recently. Then Eric called me up this year when he got this new sponsor, and wanted me to help him out with I-30 there since we were running for points. And I'm loving it. There's a lot to learn. I mean, some of the basics are still there, but wow, things have gotten, like he said, have gotten technical on these right here. And if you don't have some good, consulting from people that have been in it and steady and on that leading edge, it's tough to be competitive. But I think we're making the right strides now.
I will say one thing about running for points. Go out there and try to win every race.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what the points are. Points take care of themselves.
Yeah, no, you know me better than that. He's my yin to my yang.
I'm gonna tell you,
He's
I don't
smarter than I am.
look at the points. I go out there to win every race.
Sure. Yeah.
Dad's the one that knows what the points are.
Right.
I don't look at them because I go out there to try to win every race.
Right.
And then that way, the points fall where they will.
How'd you come up with number 30?
That was my football number.
Yeah, I wonder that.
Yeah, I just, for some reason, wanted to be 30. It was my football number. I was fullback and strong linebacker in high school.
Yeah. When I raced go-karts, that was my number 30 because the first car we bought had number 30 on it.
There you go.
So we were number 30 for a long time. So just stuck with it and kind of kept it going along.
Jeremy, being that you're working on the technical side of these programs, What have you seen in the last couple of years from a technology standpoint that's really surprised you that maybe you didn't think that you would ever see back when you first started racing?
Wow.
And I know that's a tough question, so we're going to make that our Shaw Race Cars question of the week.
So, well, luckily I got to go to the Shaw school this year. Eric sent me up there for that, and Dale McDowell was awesome to listen to up there, and I learned a lot from that right there. But I think really where the shock packages have gotten to now. I mean, compared to when we were just ordering the white AFCO shocks back in the day. You know, if you broke a ball joint and you destroyed a shock too, you know, the ball joint and the upper control arm is going to cost you as much as the shock did. Now, if you break a shock, you're out, you know, anywhere from $300 to $700 easy. And it's unreal, you know, that technology coming into place now, and you know, just trying to balance all that out. So I think really the shock, you know, game is where it's really advanced more than I ever thought it would.
Yeah, those shop were like $30, $40. Those white AFCOs.
Yeah, and you bought the good ones, you know, you're up at $70. Exactly. So you carried spares then. Now you have your shock package and that's it. You know, if you break one, you're crying.
Shocks and tires to be one shock, you know.
Oh yeah.
That would have been an expensive flip up there with those shock package now.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because it ripped the shocks and the eliminators. You know, we got real lucky on his crash. It was neat for me because I was actually standing. They've got a catwalk all the way around turn 1 and 2 down there. So I was actually standing in turn 1, looking straight down the straightaway when I saw him doing that. And so once he ended up upside down. So when he climbed out of the car, I was like, okay, me and his dad were standing up there. I knew we had to get back over there to the, once he was okay, I knew we had to get back over there and get ready for the car to come in. And it was pretty interesting. When they brought the car off, they had actually put a strap through the halo and carried it off like an Indy car. You know, they hooked those up and just carried them sideways off the track. That's how his car came off the track. And another wrecker came with his rear end hooked to it.
That's a bad day.
So, yeah, it was a very good day.
Did you notice he said it was really neat for him?
Your expression wasn't neat.
Well, I had
Yes, it
the
was.
in-car camera, you know, that's one thing we was trying to figure out how many times I rolled. I know I remember seeing, you know, sky, ground, a couple times. You know.
Oh yeah, and to see the even in the magazine article, to see the pictures that were caught of it, you can see some of the fans' reactions as it's happening. You can see those kind of in the background, and it was really, I mean, I know a neat experience, but I mean, overall for us to be able to, once we knew he was safe, then you know it was cool to be able to build things back together. I mean, you're what, 700 miles away from home and rebuild a car basically.
Yeah.
So so that was a lot of accomplishment.
Keep that in mind if we have a bad wreck this year. I mean, well, Jeremy thought it was neat.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then too, about Boone, you know, so much, and Jeremy can attest this because I didn't even hear it. But there's 2 announcers up there, and they said when I come back on the track, they said, "Y'all remember this guy who was flipping down the straightaway?" And they said they all got up and gave us a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't get to see it, but they, you know, that's, you know, they. You know,
Jeremy thought it was neat.
I did. No, at that point, I was so tired from the long night and the early morning, I didn't think it was neat anymore. But the car coming out like it did, and that's getting it back together. Was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. For sure.
Well, let's move on to Eric Perry here.
Yeah.
And
Oh boy.
tell us how you got started.
Yeah, I'm a 3rd generation driver. My grandpa raced sprint cars, and when I say sprint cars, I mean the non-wing, big-wheeled, crazy suicide machines. He raced those. My dad raced late models for years and years, and actually my brother races late models still.
Okay.
So it's always been in our blood. Me and my brother, we had a little yard cart. I was probably 3-4 years old, and my brother was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I couldn't reach the pedals, so my dad rigged up the hand controls on it, so I could actually, drive it around. But man, we'd go in our backyard and start ripping moves, a dirt track in the backyard, and just, it was our only racing we had back then. Moved up to competitive go-kart racing, raced those for a few years. Did that for until I was probably about 12, 13 years old. Then one of my dad's friends got me into street stock, and so I started driving the street stocks. And kind of a funny story, he had that thing cheated up a little bit, and so one of the rules were you had to run a single disc clutch in this class. Well, I'm about 12, 13 years old, and I don't know any better, so I get in the car and I go to push the clutch, and I yell out, I'm like, hey, I can hardly push this clutch. He's like, it's got a triple disc clutch, and you need to be quiet. I was like, well, I didn't know any better. I'm like, I can't push this. It's real hard to push. So we raced those for a little while. Then we got the late model racing when I was about 19, 20, and drove late models really at Clarksville Speedway, Paducah International Speedway. Raced those. It was really economical at the time because my dad raced late models, so any old tires and stuff like that, I was always hitting Dad up. I was like, hey man.
So you say Clarksville, Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm from Calvert City, Kentucky originally. We moved to Arkansas about 8 years ago, so
so you were over there in Jeff Purvis country.
Yep, Jeff Purvis country, absolutely. Yep, and then Kentucky Late Motor Speedway. That was a mile from my house growing up. So I mean, if we weren't racing for some reason, we could definitely hear them. So, but now I raced late models for a while, and then we decided to moved to Arkansas just to get to a little bit bigger town. Believe it or not, Little Rock is a lot bigger town than where I'm from. So we moved out here about 8, 9 years ago, and got here and there wasn't a weekly late model show around anywhere. So I started looking around. I'm like, well, there's going to be modifieds or street styles or something, and I figured, well, I mean, modifieds are still 4-bar and everything. It should be about the same. So now we got our first Shaw modified, and we had a learning curve to go over. So that first time,
hockey pucks on there ain't nothing like them late models.
Man, I went there at the first corner and about spun out the first corner, then about pushed up, off the track the next corner, and I was like, yeah, we got a bit of a learning curve here, boys. So, but no, I mean, it's, over the years, we've started, I guess this is our 5th or 6th year modified, something like that. We're finally starting to get everything tuned into them and starting to learn a little bit better. But, yeah, no, it was a big transition from late models to modifieds, that's for sure.
Well, we've never met until this evening, but it wasn't at Batesville, but I was somewhere to race one night and you were there, and you were in the modified, and it was obviously you knew how to get a car around the track. I from just what I was watching from the outside looking in, you were making an adjustment to those smaller tires.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was definitely obvious you knew how to get a car around the racetrack.
Yeah. Yeah, we burned a lot of right rears off when we first got into modifieds. There's no doubt about it. We were not tire conservation, so we would.
But I did feel like that if you ever figured it out, that you were going to be deadly out there. So.
Yeah, and I've had some help. I mean, just the guys at Shaw have been awesome helping me. Jason Wilkie was a guy who helped me a lot getting technical stuff figured out when I was starting to really try to get into these things and get faster. So he helped me a whole lot. But really, I mean, over the past year, we got on Peyton Taylor's Performances consulting program, and it's been a night and day difference. I mean, he helps us so much more than just chassis stuff. I mean, he helps me on my driving. He helps me on how to take care of sponsors properly. So I mean, all the kudos in the world to Peyton. I mean, he's been great as far as technical advice for us. I mean, the guy calls us 3 or 4 times at the racetrack just to see how we're doing. Hey, try this, try that. I mean, it's been awesome. So it's not only to have a good friend like him, but to have the consulting and the help. I mean, because when you're out there driving, there's a lot of times where you can watch a video and everything else, but you got an elite driver like Peyton Taylor to call and say, hey man, back it off here. You can change your entry here. I mean, it's just you go to the racetrack with a whole another level of confidence.
And I was fixing to ask that, what does that do to your confidence level?
Yeah, I mean, when you roll in, because that no matter what the night's going to entail, he's a phone call away. When you got a guy like that in your corner, it just gives you all the boost in the world. And him and Jeremy have hooked up, and it's got to the point where Jeremy's even got to the point now where he knows these cars well enough now to where we go to the racetrack, and I was like, all right, man, the car's yours. I mean, I say it's yours. I'm here to wheel. So I mean, he kind of talks to Peyton a lot, and him and Peyton have got together. So.
And it's helped my confidence when when Eric gets out, we go ahead and talk about what the car's done, kind of what we think is going to be our adjustment to make on it, and then Peyton will call, and we get a chance to tell him the same thing. And the adjustments that Eric and I have talked about are usually pretty close now to what Peyton's telling us. So that means either he's spying on us, or that I'm actually absorbing some of the stuff that he's given us. So that's really helped with our confidence.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
It's pretty neat.
Now, I'm going to say this because Peyton's probably watching. I wouldn't absorb everything.
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
I'm just joking, Peyton. I'm just joking.
If you've noticed, we're not having the pet of the week here with us this week either. Peyton's out there. Yeah.
You'll know what that means. So, but no, it's been a lot of fun, and we finally accomplished one of our goals we had a long time, which was to win a race at Little Rock this year.
Right.
We won one a couple years ago and had a wrong part in the front end, and probably didn't help us performance-wise, but still it was wrong, and so it cost us, the race. But man, we've really been trying to win at I-30 for a long time, and I feel like there's good drivers at any track you go to. I mean, the days of cherry picking, I think, are long gone. I mean, you show up at any racetrack, and you got at least one or two guys there that want to run there every weekend, and they got their stuff figured out. But Little Rock, though, it seems like you show up at Little Rock, and there's 20 of those guys. And I mean, when you're racing with guys like Weaver and Baser and Curtis Cook and all those guys, I mean, that's a tough group of guys right there. And so to show up on any night, it used to be. I mean, we used to show up and make the feature and be like, all right, we were in.
Right.
And so now that we're like running that, we're getting better and better there. It's just, it's just been a long goal to try to get to where we can start winning races there. I mean, it means something. I mean, it really, to me, I feel like Batesville and I-30, and I'm not saying the other tracks, they all have good cars too, but man, they're full of cars. They're full of cars. You could take the top 10 at Little Rock, and I think they'll run top 10 at most of your other tracks. I mean, just my opinion. I mean, I think, you got guys like Keaton Atkinson just came on. I mean, he's a rocket now.
He's on fire.
He's on fire, yeah. And so to run with him, and Keaton's one of those guys where I've told him before, he's got GoPro videos of me and him. We can run side by side for 20 laps and not touch. Baser's one. We can run side by side and not touch. And that, on a little track like that, that's a lot, because that's a lot of give there. When you're side by side, I mean, he could easily try to do a slide job and pass me or whatever. But I know if me or any of those guys would ever have any kind of confrontation, I know it would be totally accidental, and it'd be like, all right, we'll fix it and come back next weekend. But when you get to the upper level of the guys at Little Rock, man, they're all wicked fast. I mean, they're all so good. I mean, they're really hard to beat. So it's
and that is true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of top-notch drivers there in Little Rock.
Yeah.
And something I think complements y'all's racing is you got a rain out last week, and you were able to pack up and head north to Crowley's Ridge, up at Perryville, and pick up a win.
Yeah.
You're that's got to complement your program a whole lot, because you went to somebody else's backyard, and you picked up a win that night when you were expecting and planning and everything to be somewhere like Little Rock, and then you pick up and move to the other side of the state. That's got to add a lot of confidence to y'all's program as well.
Yeah, it does, and and we did make some changes to the car to get ready. I'm not one to brag or boast. I take every win like it's. You never know when your last one's going to come. So I never want to look at it like, yeah, we showed up, we did our job. But I mean, I'm thankful for every opportunity that I get to run top 5. Right. And for Crawley's, though, it's been a place, I don't know why, ever since we went there, I got the place figured out how to catfish there. I don't know what it is. If I get up top, I'm decent, we're okay, but man, we can catfish there like no other. So I really think that comes back to a lot of that is you can overdrive the car so easy at Crawley's Ridge. And a late model for when I was, which they're way different now, late models are totally different. But they were really easy to drive because you have 700, 800, 900 horsepower you have to kind of, maintain. So for me, just being able to slow the car down enough through the center to get the pivot on the bottom and, not get on the gas too soon is really, Clarksville Speedway, if you guys have ever been there, that's a stop and go racetrack just like that. So, that's what I grew up racing. And so I really like the Ridge. Not just because we're good there, but man, that place is awesome. Like, you go there any Saturday night, stands are full. It's just a really, really cool environment to go racing at.
It is.
And Trent does such a good job as far as track maintenance goes. The facilities are awesome nice. There's everything there is just a really fun place to race. And again, you have guys there who are bad fast too.
And that's what I was fixing to say. It's, you got guys that may not travel, but they know that track like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, like I said, for you to go in their backyard there and pick up a win the other night, that says a lot about your program, because every track's got those one or two guys.
Oh, yeah.
That's their home track, and they know it better than anybody else.
Yep.
And, when you or Dave, somebody goes in somewhere like that and picks up a win, that's,
right.
There's no easy ones out there.
Yeah, and like I said, it really goes back to, when you have a guy like Peyton Taylor in your corner, it gives you the confidence. You show up and you're like, you know what, even if we're not fast out of the gate, it's a phone call away. We can definitely be better by the time we unload, the time we finish. So, that confidence goes a long ways. It really helps me as a driver to say, all right, He said it's going to work. He said do this. It's like Day of Thunder. He puts a set of match tires on there. I'm like, all right, buddy. He said hold her to 4. We're going to see what happens. But I mean, I have that trust in him. Like, I know he's that, he's that top echelon of a driver to where I trust him.
If you're both at the same track, does he expect you to call or does he let you walk over?
No, we like when we race in Little Rock together. Yeah, we park beside each other.
Okay,
and,
I didn't know. I didn't know what he required. If he wanted you to go ahead and call him, if he let you.
Yeah. No,
Just joking, Peyton.
Yeah. No, I try not to aggravate him too much. Yeah.
What about the? You talked a little bit about the transition from the modified and the late model. What did you rather? Which did you rather run? I mean,
if you would have asked me that question 2 years ago, I miss late models more than anything. And then actually, I got out of modified racing for about half a year, and I bought a Barry Wright crate late model. And they had that All-Star series that traveled around. And when I realized how far out there, you think modifieds are far out there now. Late models, they are a next level. And for a local guy like me, a new late model, now a super, you're talking $125,000 for a new race car. And their shocks and springs are $12,000, $13,000 for shit. I can't do that. And then the technology is on a whole nother level too. When we're double stacking springs, we're running, when I went back to modifieds, I realized that where they're at now, they drive a lot like late models did 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. I don't know what the new ones drive like nowadays. I've never drove an XR1 or nothing like that. But they do have I think the modifieds nowadays have the front ends are a whole lot better, so they steer the response a lot better, and they have more grip now. We found more grip in them by rolling motor in the right front all the way. So I think that to answer your question, I definitely like modifieds better now. I think they're more attainable for the weekly guy. They're not,
I agree with you on the attainable for the weekly guy.
Right. Now I love watching late models now. Anytime with Lucas Oil show or anything else, I'll go watch them tear up $100,000. That's fine. But no, they're still probably my favorite thing to watch. As far as driving goes, I'll stick with modifieds. Yeah. That's actually what I said. I said the other day. I said if I ever won the lottery, I don't think I would go after late models. I'd find a good modified team and have fun with that.
Right.
And I'll ask you kind of the same question that I asked Jeremy. You've been around racing a long time, and we'll look at the modifieds and basically ask both you and David, is there anything outside of the shocks that's in that box of that IMCA modified that you see these days that you probably didn't think you'd ever see?
Yeah, I think not skilling cars nowadays. Really a lot of guys don't scale cars anymore. We go off of low numbers and everything, so we don't really, use our scales much anymore. Yeah,
and that's always funny. You sit there and think about how back. As little as a few years ago, we were scaling cars, and a lot of people now, ride height don't mean nothing anymore.
Not a thing.
Not a thing anymore. Before we were trying to check the ride height, we wanted to be, and now, that's not even a deal.
The only time ride height matters is when they check you at the end of the race. And make sure 39.5 inches has got to be right there.
Right.
So
but you know what I'm saying. Used to you were trying to.
Yeah, and I think that all contributes back to, when the XR1 came out, all modified technology trickles down from late models. It all starts at the top echelon and then travels down to us. And I think once they figured out that checking these cars in dynamic state is a whole lot more important than checking the static, we started to realize that, hey, maybe we need to, that's when pull down rigs came along. That's when all this stuff came along. So, yeah. Whole other level.
Whole other level.
Right there. Yeah. But what the stuff.
NASCAR engineers.
Yeah.
Right.
But the stuff that they learn though, it does transfer to us. It does eventually learn. We learn that hey, we have load sticks. We can check our front ends now. We check our shocks and our springs. Our left rear at droop. So you learn to check everything like you're on a pull down rig. It's just 4-man's pull down rig.
It's hard to check these, those covered up as they are.
Yeah, Dave,
I want to look fast.
I
at
want
least.
to say Eric also gave us too much credit because he obviously felt like that we were smarter than what we actually are. We just got this car covered up tonight because
Well-
we're not going to leave here with any information that we normally pick up when we're at the shop.
Well, I think a lot.
You're not helping our racing program one iota. I just want you to know.
Well, I think a lot about David. I don't want him to see the wrong things in it.
Okay.
So I don't look at my car and be like, well, that's I definitely don't want to do that.
Well, basically what it is, he's hiding this from David.
Well, I feel better now.
Now David might be on a Shaw car as well. So, you know.
There's nothing from David Bays or Eric Perry can hide. I promise.
Because
I promise
when we
you.
walked through the door, I started to tell you, well, we've made this 2-hour trip for nothing. This is not about the show; it's about what we can steal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
While we're here.
You got to look fast, right?
Yeah.
It's all perception,
So this is a very fast car because it's all covered up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That adds at least a tenth of a second off.
I moved down here to Raymond, and basically same thing. I mean,
I got started in racing whenever I was 11. My parents moved across the street from a guy that had a race car. And I remember when we moved out there, I heard that thing fire up. I walked to the end of the driveway and just stared over there. And I'd gone to I-30 Speedway with my parents a few times and thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. And now I'm like, man, this car is across the street from where I live. So I instantly, just kind of was gravitated towards that shop. And as soon as he saw me out on the street, just kind of looking down there, he waved me down. And little did I know, this guy was fixing to become like my second father figure. I didn't know it, but his name was Ron Gormley.
Yep.
Motorcycle patrolman for Little Rock.
Yep.
And from 11 until I quit helping him his car, about 17, he was literally kept me out of trouble, like y'all were talking about earlier. Every weekend, you're at the racetrack, you're not on the streets. I didn't even realize what he was doing, but when he was doing it. And I learned a lot from him. I've never gotten a lot into the technical side of things. When I first started at 11, of course, he handed me a scraper and said, "Here you go." And I was a part of the team,
Right.
I was proud to go scrape the underside of the fenders. And I didn't even realize the connection that we had. I quit helping because I got to the age of I was paying my own way in to work, or I could go hang out with my buddies. And I was at that age where I chose I was going to go hang out with my buddies. I regret those decisions now. He was around another 10 years after that, but he ended up getting ALS, passing away. And honestly, man, I didn't even go to the tracks anymore. I didn't want to go because it just brought back memories that were, I'd get choked up just walking up to the gates. And a guy that was sponsoring David a few years ago, probably 7-8 years ago, he was sponsoring him. I work for the guy now, Cole Fitzhugh with Fitz Service Company. And he hit me up one night. He's like, "Hey man, you want to go to the track?" I was like, "Man, I ain't been there in so long. It just brings back memories." He's like, "Hey, you ain't got to." And I was like, "Yeah, we'll go." From that moment on, I've been going back every year. Every weekend. I'm usually at I-30. 95% of the time I'm going to be at I-30 unless it rains out. And then about 4 years ago, because we're coming up on the 3rd annual Ron Gormley Memorial, about 4 years ago I was sitting there, and my girlfriend at the time was really close to Tracy Clay. My ex that has passed away from breast cancer did Tracy's nails, so I was like, there's an end. And I was sitting at the races one night he's got the shirt on at the Scrap Fox Memorial, and I said, I want to have a race for Ron. So I just asked Tracy if I could, and I've felt like ever since then I've gotten so back into racing because I'm communicating with drivers and this and that. And the first year I had a good sponsor, and he didn't come back the second year. And then last year, one of my friends works at Rock City Harley Davidson, and I stopped by there. It's like, hey man, you think here's my flyer? Where's your guy that would make that decision? He came down there and we visited. And after a couple phone calls, he stepped up and said, I want to help grow this thing into something great. So the second annual was bigger and better, and we got the third annual coming up July 31st. So it's coming up fast, and I'm trying to do all I can to help raise some money for it. And last fall, Eric was going to make it to the car show that they had at Rock City Harley Davidson. Reached out to me and was like, hey man, I'm coming. I'm going to be there. Well, was it transmission or rear end?
Yeah, transmission.
The morning of, he starts having transmission issues, and he doesn't make it. And you would have thought that we go back 10 years, because he called me up or sent me a message on Facebook and was like, I'm so sorry that I told you I was going to be there and I didn't come. I was like, man, it's okay. It's no big deal. Then over the off season, he asked me if I could introduce him to Rock City. And next thing I know, they've got an agreement to sponsor his car, changed his number, which is a diehard thing for a driver to do. And
I just noticed that.
Yeah.
I just noticed it.
and before I know it, I came by here 3 or 4 times early in the season, and the next thing you know, I help him during the week get the car prepped to go to the track, and then I sit in turn 1 and drink beer and let the masters go at it, over on the pit side, because there's nothing I'm going to bring to the table over in the pits as far as expertise, but
He's
I
being
can
modest.
change a
He helps a
tire.
lot.
I can straighten a piece of sheet metal. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I fell in love with it because of Ron Gormley. Lost him, drifted away, didn't want to be a part of going to dirt track, and my buddy got me back into it. And I feel like since I've started helping Eric, I feel like I've got a new best friend. We just hit it off, and I know we had those back-to-back weeks. We had 2 bad weeks at I-30 Speedway where we ripped the rear end out from underneath the car, sent it off to Shaw. Yeah. And then the very next Saturday, we had an axle twist out of it, and it was just frustrating. And then that third week after that, we're standing on the straightaway, and I'm just like, man, all that hard work, that's what it's about. So I'm just proud to
I want to compliment you on doing the race for Ron.
Absolutely.
Myself and we come from law enforcement backgrounds and old racers ourselves, and I had the privilege of meeting Ron a long time ago once, and had a short conversation with him, and I appreciate you stepping up to the plate and honoring him like you do with this race.
Well, and my brain was going a million directions. All of this race for him is to benefit the ALS chapter of Arkansas. And we raised, I think it was either $1,100 or $1,600 the first year, and last year we raised, I think, $3,000 for them. And I'm just hoping this year, that we can make it a bigger and better event every year. So anybody out there that wants to sponsor.
Yeah. I will say Ray does pay a lot out of pocket. I mean, we've had discussions about it, and just the more help he gets, the easier it is to keep this race going on year after year after year. So,
Well, I think too, with Ron being a motorcycle officer and bringing on a sponsor like Rock City Harley Davidson, I think that complements Ron's life as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm not taking any jabs here. That's my only The only failure that I feel like I've had on this, and I said this in a Facebook post the other day. The only place that I feel like I've failed in honoring Ron is for 2 years I've gotten no support from the motorcycle patrol to come out for a lap to celebrate him, But I'll keep plugging away, and 1 year they'll say yes, or maybe I can get North Little Rock or Conway Motorcycle Patrol. I just would like to see.
We might be able to help you out a little bit in that area. So
That'd be great.
We will. We know a few people to talk to. Like I said, we come from law enforcement backgrounds. So we'll see what we can do there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good race because it's not only just the Ron Gordley Memorial, it also benefits ALS.
Right.
ALS is a great cause.
And we had a close friend of ours, racer back home, J.D. Harrison, who passed away a few short years ago from the same thing. So that's, got a soft spot in our heart, as well. So we really appreciate your efforts there.
Well, because when I was helping him, he always ran a modified, so that's the car that I'm one of the few people that stay in the stands for the last race at I-30 every night. It's funny to watch every weekend the modifieds run last and half the people leave right before they come out, and I'm like, guys, y'all are missing.
And they're missing David and Eric Perry.
They're missing some of the best.
Yeah.
Some of the best
No, but you're exactly right. There is some fantastic modified racing that goes on at I-30 Speedway.
Just like Eric was talking about earlier, I think any given night, the top 10 guys have the ability to move into that top spot. I mean, there's not a night where you're like, this guy's got it, and the other guys are fighting for second, third, and fourth. The top 5 to 10 are always. And it's the same thing with the IMCA stock car class. Those are some salty guys too.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a good question that we like to ask a lot on the show is, what's it going to take? Like I said, you talk about the modifieds being competitive and the new IMCA stock cars being competitive, and obviously the fans like competitive racing. What do we do in racing to make it more competitive with the fans? Like I said, I feel like we've trickled off the fans a lot because we reward, a lot of places reward in a lot of classes, the winner of the heat races to start on the front. And in years ago in racing, it was a flip-flop. 1 week High Point started on the back, and the next week they got the opportunity to start on the front. And the racing was a whole lot more entertaining. What do we do? What do we do to make the races more entertaining for the fans?
I was going to say, I know one thing that IMCA has done, as frustrating as it might be for the guys that are leading, up there in points, is they do make the high points guys start back to back. I mean, so.
And I'm not necessarily picking on IMCA.
Right.
But what about our other classes?
I mean, I think that's a good thing, though. Is, as a racer, it's frustrating because it can be expensive making your way to the front if you've got low points guys at the front. But, I mean, at the same time, it gives those guys a chance to have a win at some point or a good finish. So, I mean, I think the other classes maybe adopting something like that might not be a bad idea. Because, I mean, I don't know. It's fun to watch David come from 12th up to the top 2 or to win it. I mean,
and David, do you feel more accomplished as a driver from coming from the back if you get a bad starting night and win a race than you do if you started on the front?
Oh yeah, I've started as far back as 17th at Williamsburg, and that was still a challenge. But there's been countless nights, being high points guys starting 12th or didn't even make the inversion and started like 13th or 14th to be able to win. My deal as a racer that, and this is personal to me, is if you have a class and you have the rules, make sure that everybody's in that box. Don't let somebody get away with this, that, because when you let somebody get away with something and they're dominating, it takes the fire out of the other guys. If you make sure that the class that you have, that you stick tight to the rules and you check all those rules and everything and you stick to it, that to me brings it all in. Look at NASCAR, I mean, that's how tight of a box that needs to be, so there's just not one person dominating every race. So that as me as a racer, I see that and want everybody to be in the same deal because, I call it still poor man's racing, that, if I can go out there and everybody's got the same exact equipment, guess what? You're beating me. You're not beating my equipment. You're not beating the money. And that's the way I look at it. Whenever you don't want to beat up by IMCA, but when you start letting more and more stuff get, built into these cars, you start taking the actual guy that just wants to get into racing. So to me, to be more competitive and stuff as far as across the board, when you have a class that, regardless, everything is the exact same. There's no, well, you can have this or that. It's going to be, this is the box you're in, and this is it. And believe me, you'll see, the drivers come out. Not just the money. And you got the drivers come out,
Right.
and my gosh, that's the way I want everything because, like I said, I've had a lot less money in my stuff than a lot of people do, and I can still go out there and get it done. So I mean, to me, that's where you don't let a class bloom out there too far. You need to keep that tight pack. If there needs to be something changed, that's fine, but make sure it's economical, that it's not, all of a sudden this guy, he's got to work like I had to do, 2 or 3 years before I got a crate motor, 2 or 3 years before I got a quick change. I was always, it seemed like I was just a little bit behind, but once I caught up, or, and so, I mean, that's the way I look at it, that, to answer your question as far as making sure that it's competitive across the board, that you would see a lot more people. And then, like I said, when you invert that field, then,
Great.
We hear a lot of promoters say, if we did more inverts or more serious inverts, we're gonna make the drivers mad. And one of the things that we asked everywhere we go, and I've been really fascinated that I've not had one driver that felt like that he needed to start up front if he won the heat. I've not had one driver since we've been doing this show tell
I ain't
us,
never been like that.
but you always hear from a promoter standpoint, if we get more serious on the inverts, or we flip flop, we'll make all the drivers mad.
Yeah.
Well, the drivers want to drive, and that's what we found since we've been doing it. The drivers want to go out there and they want to pass cars.
Yeah.
And we keep hoping every week that the owners and promoters will listen to what's going on, because I think we've lost sight a little bit that we're also in the entertainment business.
Exactly.
And we've got to put on an entertaining show for the fans, and it's no fun for the fans to watch a guy that comes out, wins the heat, and then comes out and distances himself as far as they do in some classes, for the future.
Every week.
Every week.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get to is the last job I would ever want is to be a track promoter. I mean, that's a lose-lose hard job to have, and I just try to support those guys, because without them, we're sitting at home watching TV on the weekends. I mean, we have nowhere to go. So, but I think the more you break the barrier between fan and racer, I think the more involvement you have. You got to have that open access, I think, from the guys sitting in the stands to the guys on the track. And now, rather that be, having the drivers come up and meet with the kids and everything.
And it's funny you say that, because we've been saying that for a long time.
Yeah.
That, a driver in his driver's suit going up there and talking to a bunch of kids.
Right.
What? I mean,
Well,
that kid wants to come back to the track the next week and say, "Hey, I want to go see Eric. I want to go
Right.
see David."
Well,
these guys come up, fans talk, or they talk to me.
right. Well, and it's a cool feeling too. Like Ray bought a bunch of hero cards for us, and this weekend and last time we were at Crawley's, we went up to the top and we just started giving away hero cards to everybody. and kids are having me sign them and all kinds of stuff. So I mean, that was a cool feeling right there.
Right.
But I probably gave away 100 cards to kids. But man, when we won that race, like I got out of the car and I heard a cheer like I have never heard. I'm like, y'all cheering for me? I was like, hey, it's for me. I was like, man, what? All right, that's pretty cool. And so so having that involvement of, like you said, those kids when they leave, they're gonna go home and have that little hero card and be like, hey, this guy won.
Yeah.
I mean, and for me, it's a special thing to win, but man, you keep that younger generation in. You got to keep them involved. And when I was pulling on the track, I waved, and I had all kinds of people waving at me and stuff. I was like, man, this is crazy. Well, this is cool. So just breaking that wall between, and that's what sucks, because when you're in the pits, we're locked away. We're in the pits, the fans are at the top.
And if a lot of racetracks, the way that they're configured, the pits are really not, as drivers, and you be in the pits and everything, you're really not accessible to the fans.
Yeah.
And and we would encourage all the drivers to, you get there plenty early anyway, about 95% of the time. Take some time to go over there to the stands and speak with those kids, speak with all the fans, because I will promise you that when a fan up there in the stands has close interaction with you guys and it becomes a personal interaction, they're more apt to come back to the track week after week after week to watch you guys.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, I mean it's getting those people involved. I never noticed it growing up. Like I said, I grew up. My dad raced. We've always raced, and I never realized. We'd go everywhere. People would see my dad and be like, "Oh, hey, Brett," and be like, "Who the hell's that?" I'm sure it happens to you, David. It happens to me all the time, and you don't realize it because we've been in our whole lives. But man, to an outsider, those people sitting in the stands by 30, man, we're someone that they watch. We're someone they root for. And so if you have that interaction with them, it's not I'm saying we're a big deal. I'm saying that
you are a big deal and you don't realize it.
Yeah.
You are a big deal.
Yeah, that's my dad told me that forever. He said, I used to get mad. Well, I still sometimes get mad at the racetrack, but I'd show my butt here to here, and Dad tell me like, look, you got someone watching. No matter what, that night you were someone's pick. That night someone was watching.
Yeah, that's what you told my dad that.
Yeah.
I was like, he was like, asked me one time. He goes, "How come we ain't ever won that daggone what was it, sportsmanship trophy?" I looked at Dad. I said, "Dad, that sportsmanship trophy counts for pit crew too." He's like, oh, because if somebody run over you, he'd get on.
Yeah.
He did the next year. We won it. And I was like, look. I said, now you can go back to being Dad again. I said, because we won't ever win it again. I said,
Yeah.
But and then talking about that, whenever I'd win the hard charger trophy, I'd always give it to him the next week and say, give this to a kid in the stands. Because I was like, I got more people hollering for me now than I did way back when. I first started.
Yeah.
But you are a big deal. And what I'm getting at, we have those fans who are going to come every week, or most every week. But for the fan that maybe only comes a couple times a year, a little personal interaction with you drivers will get them there more and more and more throughout the season.
Yeah.
And that's what the owners and promoters need. Y'all are very important in building the fan base.
Right.
Always don't ever think that you're not important, because on Friday and Saturday nights you are you are the Kyle Larsons of the world.
Yeah.
I mean you're there who's you're who everybody's come to see. I mean
Yeah.
Well, Heath, let's move on to the New Vision graphics and sports shirts. Vision for the future for 2021.
So I guess we'll start with David. And for 2021, what are we looking for? Rest of this season.
Like I said, just go out and try to win every race, and that's the way I've always done it. And that's the reason why, he said he's running for points. I've won enough track championships. It's not like that I'm trying to go out and win every one, but it's like the advice I gave him, and I told Buck Reed this one time. He was leading points, and he got conservative. And I told him after the banquet, I said, you know why you didn't win the points championship? He goes, why? I said, because you got too conservative. I said, you've got to go out there and try to win every race. Now, don't go out there and run over everybody. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you got to go out and be consistent and try to win every race. And that's what wins championships. That's the reason why I wanted to make championship side.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, finishing 4th or 5th one night's not that bad. If you, at least if you moved up, you know, the track's a little bit, you know, one lane or whatever the case may be, you know, feel sorry for Tracy and them. I mean, the track's been, you know, a little rough, but it's Mother Nature. It's not because they don't want you to have a smooth track. It's because Mother Nature does not let that happen.
Well, last time we were out there, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Last race out there, track.
Is there any sponsors or anybody you want to thank right now for?
Well, of
before we
course,
move on?
you know, I only have 2, and one of them's my dad. He's my biggest sponsor. You know, thanks, Dad. You know, it's on my car, and of course, Cheryl's Automotive. It's in Gravel Ridge. You know, and that's pretty much the sponsors that I have.
We'll move to Jeremy.
Well, for this year, I mean, I just want to do the best I can to help Eric with what his goals are. You know, we got the first one out of the way. Now we just want to build on that. You know, that's since I met him, what, 6 years ago, I think it is. You know, and actually, when you were talking about making the transition from late models to modifieds, I think when you had your aha moment and really changed your pattern of driving, we broke out the old in-car camera videos of me and David racing modifieds out there at Beebe, and he saw where our deceleration and braking was, where the difference was of that compared to late model. So I mean, it's been pretty neat. And ever since that, I-30 has been his goal. You know, get that win at I-30. So we finally checked that one off, and you know, now it's stay consistent, build on that, and yeah, being able to travel some other tracks when we have time off from I-30 scheduled, that we can go do that. So just getting him where he needs to be.
Eric.
Yeah. Really, at this point, we just want to keep the momentum going. You know, we want to keep it going for as long as we can, and you know, really, I mean, our ultimate goal is to win the championship, of course. But I mean, top 5 would be awesome. You know, it'd be great. Our first full year at I-30 to break top 5 would be going to be awesome. So, while we are thinking about the big championship picture, you know, when I show up on Saturdays, and I'm thinking that weekend. You know, I'm trying to get that weekend. So. Yeah, and I mean, we have some great help this year. You know, Rock City Harley Davidson came on. I mean, they have an awesome facility down by Bass Pro Shop in Little Rock. You know, they have been really big help for us and been really great. We've had our car at their location for what they call Gorilla Chills, where they have, you know, people come in, have a chance to look at the car. And again, that goes back to the getting fans involved. You know, it's having a chance to look at the car up close and everything else. You know, Lost 40, you know, thanks to Peyton Taylor, kind of, you know, came with us. So, you know, we're kind of doing a lot to support Lost 40 right now. Napa Auto Parts in Beebe, Arkansas. You know, Bubba out there has done a really good job at helping us, you know, with oil and filters and stuff like that. So they've been a great help to us. Arkansas Mini Dumpsters out of Little Rock. He does a lot. He comes aboard. He's been doing this for a couple of years now. So they, you know, any kind of excavating, any kind of mini dumpster rental, you know, they're good for that. But yeah, and then you know, just my guys that help me. You know, I mean, Jeremy's been awesome help. Ray's been an awesome help. You know, so it's been really good to have that support. I mean, and then of course, PTP Performance. You know, you got to give Peyton his props. I mean, he's been a great help for us too. So, thank you, Peyton. Appreciate you, buddy.
Ryan?
I mean, it's beating a dead horse. Being a part of this team, I want to see. I've actually taken a phrase from Ron, and I've started using it, talking to him, saying that I want, whenever you pull in the parking lot, I want people to say, "Oh man!" And what Ron used to always say is,
They do for the wrong reasons.
he wanted to hurt people's feelings every weekend because they just can't quite, you know. Whenever Jason Crawley was driving for him, I remember when Jason first started driving for him, the first 8 races, I think we won 6 of them. And I was just like, wow, this is fun now. That's what everybody's out there, all the drivers are out there, the teams are out there to park it on the front straightaway. So, I mean, 2021, I want to have as many pictures taken with him on the front straightaway as possible.
Yep.
I couldn't be there Saturday because I went to the Razorback game and he was giving me flack. He was like a baseball game.
I don't know anybody else
Which
on the
turned out
show
great, didn't it?
that was there either. I guess you were probably. I guess if you sat down on this end of the show, you were at the Razorback game.
But then I told him, I said, I'm gonna be at the game. I said, but be sure and send me that picture at the end of the night. And whenever he sent it, I was like, man, that's awesome.
And we want to thank you also for the race you put on at I-30.
It's coming up quick.
Yeah.
3,000 to win, 300 to start.
It's a big one.
That is a big one.
Big one.
And
I had to scale it back from last year. Last year was 5,500 to start.
And that's just from lack of support, though.
Yeah,
So,
if I can get a little more support on it, we can.
get it back
We
up.
may even creep this year back up if I can get the support.
Yeah.
well, like I said, it's been an awesome time tonight having you guys on the show, and it's been a lot of fun, and we got a lot of information. We tend to have drivers on the show all the time, and I want to thank Raymond and Jeremy for coming in here tonight as well, because our motto is that everybody in motorsports has a story, and it was good to get some perspectives from someone who wasn't necessarily behind the wheel. So that's I think it added a lot to the show tonight. So,
Yeah, the speaker was, I don't mean to interrupt you. I want to introduce my daughter.
yeah,
She's,
I was going to have her.
okay. This is my daughter. She's in the powder puff. She raced 2 races. The first one was a big learning curve.
We're not gonna talk about it.
I know. But the second race, she didn't finish last. And she learned a lot and had a lot of fun.
Is that
And,
what I saw called
and
out
I do
about
appreciate Bart Goodson for giving her the opportunity to drive that car. And
I want to thank Bart Goodson for that, for sure. Personally, I think the future of racing is female, but that's just me.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh, so where are we going next week, Heath?
Next week we're going to Greenbrier, Arkansas.
Back to our home office
Yes,
in Greenbrier, Arkansas.
We're gonna go see Glenn Brown.
Old Fireball,
Fireball
Glenn Brown.
We're gonna go up there and visit with him and Alan. And but that's where we're headed next week.
That'll be an entertaining show.
yes,
I
it will be.
promise.
It will be.
yeah, we'll have Alan Brown and Glenn Brown both, so we'll be up there in Greenbrier. Seems like we go to Greenbrier quite often.
Like I said, that's where our home office is, I think, sometimes.
We'll definitely be tuning into that, because I know the 3 of us have all raced with him. So it'll be fun to listen to him.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, before we go tonight, we need to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Chambers Bank with 28 locations throughout Arkansas. Banking's never been easier than with Chambers Bank. We want to thank Skyway Buick GMC up in Joplin, Missouri. Heath, you going to be?
I was
You
fixing
busy
to
with
say,
baseball
last-
this week?
This week was fun.
Yeah, like I said, if you buy a vehicle from Skyway before Friday, here in Arkansas, Heath will come to the Skyway team and help deliver the keys. We also want to thank True Grit Auction Company over in Dardanelle, Arkansas, Arkansas's #1 online auction service. And we also want to thank Shaw Race Cars, all of our friends up there in Batesville, Arkansas, for helping out Arkansas Motorsports Magazine. And we can't help but thank for the fine product that they put out in racing. And we also want to thank Kevin Rogers over at KR Performance Fuels. He fuels a lot of people to victory lane every week, so thank you, Kevin. Eddie Hoyer down in Plummerville, Arkansas at Four-Play Speed and Muffler Shop. Straight Line Transmissions in Greenbrier. Ecky's Race Parts and Accessories down in North Little Rock. And Blankenship's Pit Stop, as well as Phil Potts' shop up in Greenwood, Arkansas. I want to thank all of them and our drag racing counterparts, the Centerville Dragway over in Centerville, Arkansas, and Prescott Dragway down in just outside of Prescott. So, whatever you do on this fabulous weather weekend that Heath Tate has promised everybody,
Looking
whether
that
you
way.
use stock car race, drag race, or whatever, get out and enjoy the racing weekend this weekend. So, for Bill Gilkey, Heath Tate, Raymond Dye, Eric Perry, Jeremy Murphy there, and David Baser here. I'm Bill Gilkey, and I want to thank our production manager, Aaron Gilkey, for the fine job he done tonight, getting everything hooked up and going, and saved the day once again. Thank you, Aaron, for all you do. And this young lady over here, David's daughter, and I'm sorry I forgot your name. Lauren. I want to thank Lauren for being on the show tonight. So we'll see you back next week from Fireball Brown next Tuesday night on Arkansas Motorsports Magazine's Tuesday Night Tune-Up. Thank you.